was it realistic to 5x the number of activity that I was going to do? Maybe not. If we look back
Hmm.
and say, well, realistically, that's going to require X number of hours per week. I only have 40 hours and I don't have a team yet. And this is going to require 80 hours. It wasn't a realistic goal to begin with. So we may need to just adjust. Maybe we need to learn the process of planning. And sometimes that process of planning is you get a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks in and realize the plan has to change based on real data. And that's okay.
Hey, it's Kay and Tanner here, and we're going to be bringing up some business topics to help you find success in your business. How's it going, Tanner?
It's good. We were just talking about this off air before we jumped in and realizing that it's been like this is the first one we're actually recording of the new year, as we kind of got through the holidays and everything else. So excited to be back, kind of be back in the chair and talking about different things and sharing some knowledge with all of our viewers.
Definitely. It does feel good to be back. It feels good to be back in a rhythm after the chaos of the holidays and getting into quarter one and taking the year ahead. So yeah, what are we going to talk about today, Tanner?
I think when we think about when this will be airing versus kind of some of the things that we've talked about in previous episodes with building your plan and kind of going through whether it's your budget or it's the things you need to do sales or marketing wise and different things like that. Knowing that this may be very timely for some of y'all that are watching, but what do you do when you're off plan? What if you get halfway through the quarter and you're like, I'm nowhere near where I thought I was going to be, these things aren't working out the way I thought it was going to be. Like, what do I do in that case? I think that'd be kind of a fun one to dig into here today.
Oh, I completely agree because how many times have I been there, guys? Like I feel that so much. Like you just kind of like get off of you get off of your path and you're like, how did I get here and how do I get back to where I want to be headed? So I think this is a great topic to uncover.
So I'd love to actually throw this back to you for a moment and say, in some of those times where you've found yourself kind of off track, how have you approached that in the past? Like, what are some of the things that you've done? Do you just change the plan? Do you figure out how to get back on track? Like, what have you done in the past?
Well, definitely. I've tried a couple of things, and some of them, tend to work better or worse depending on the situation. But usually when I start to notice I'm off track, it's either things are not in alignment and I'm like, why is this not working? Or I hit a lot of roadblocks and something then is like, says to me, okay, you got to regroup. You got to look at what you're doing. And so I like to first take a pause, really pause and say, what's going on here? Is like, where is this all coming from? And all the different, you know, like things that go into that, which could be emotional. It could be, like you said, like I said, like reaching roadblocks. It could be a multitude of things or being tired, different things that are telling me something needs to be recalibrated. So I think taking a pause and really investigating what those things are and then finding like those key elements, like where am I off? Oh, been putting way more hours into this side of things than I'm missing things on another element of my business. And so really looking at that and then kind of validating what those things are, like test the water, see what's been off track, and then, find those doors for opportunity to get back onto track and head forward. And then that kind of creates that transformation into getting yourself back on track. So that's a lot of what I do is a lot of pausing and reflecting, journaling, conversations with my coach is a big one that helps, really getting to the root of why I'm off track. And then we come up with a solution, a plan to kind of transform and get back on track.
I love that. And you said investigating. That's one that kind of stood out to me. Is like, what is the kind of what's the real cause behind us being off plan by such amount or whatever. First and foremost, I got to congratulate everyone who is sitting here going, "Oh, that's me. I'm off plan," because even though it feels kind of unfortunate that you're maybe not hitting the plan that you had set out to achieve, the fact that you one have a plan that you're looking to achieve, and two know that you're off track. Congratulations, you're already ahead of a lot of folks out there. So being able to identify that is kind of a big piece. But I look at a few things personally when I get into it, and the first one is understanding why am I off track, and sometimes it just comes back down to, did I plan correctly? Was the thing I set out to achieve, was it actually realistic? And you got to look at kind of what the standards are for that. So if we look at kind of let's take an example of setting sales meetings. Something fairly simple to track. It relates to most businesses out there. And if I put together a plan for the quarter, said I'm gonna set 5 sales meetings every single week, and I'm just gonna do that over and over and over again. Um, you get halfway through the quarter and realize, shoot, I'm off by 50-60%. Like, I'm not even close to what my numbers are. Usually I'll take a step back and go, well, one, why is that? Is it that we did the activity? Like, I went to the events I needed to. I got the leads in. I talked to the people I needed to talk to, and I just couldn't quite convert them to booking the next meeting. Or like, I'm booking them just fine, but I just didn't have it. I didn't go do the activity required, right? So we have to kind of determine which one of those is kind of the root cause, and it may be a mix of both, but like, which one is primary on that? And then ask the question, well, was the goal that I set realistic? Right. So if I've never achieved five, what I say, 5 a week, whatever that number was that I set, if I've never done that before, and the most I've ever done is one, was it realistic to 5x the number of activity that I was going to do? Maybe not. If we look back
Hmm.
and say, well, realistically, that's going to require X number of hours per week. I only have 40 hours and I don't have a team yet. And this is going to require 80 hours. Like, it wasn't a realistic goal to begin with. So we may need to just adjust. Maybe we need to learn the process of planning. And sometimes that process of planning is you get a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks in and realize the plan has to change based on real data. And that's okay. Unless you've been consistently building your plan or your budget or anything else like that for the last 3, 4 years and just refining over and over and over again, the likelihood of getting it right that first time is pretty low. We're all there. Like, we have to get that real time feedback of, sometimes we just set goals that take longer. Sometimes we set goals that aren't going to fit within that constraint. Um, so those are some of the things that like initially come to mind for me. If it is truly it is realistic. We were just off. We didn't do the activity. We didn't do the things required to go achieve the goal, but we have the capacity to do so. Well, then maybe we make the adjustment to the activity for the remainder of the quarter. Well, how much am I off by? Let's say I'm off by 10 meetings. Okay, well, there's 10 weeks left. All right, well, whatever my goal was before, I'm now going to take what I missed, divide it by those 10 weeks. I need an extra one per week. So if my goal was five, now it's six, right? And I have to hit six every single week. As long as I have the capacity, I know the activity required to get there. So there's ways to stay on plan. Sometimes the plan may not have been the best plan, but setting realistic goals and kind of milestones, that's a big piece. If to go lose 100 pounds in 4 weeks is pretty unreasonable for most people, but that doesn't mean you can't make progress. Maybe we just need to set a little bit different goal and change things on a timing standard. So that's my initial thoughts. I know that was a whole bunch of just spewing of what was in my brain, but those are some of the things that at least I do when I think about, hey, I might be off track. We're kind of off here. What additional things need to change? And go back to what you said, investigating kind of what's the root cause. Is it behind the problem, or is there something else that we need to work through as well?
Definitely. You touched on quite a few great points that I really want to unpack because the one on, that I think there's a phrase, I might be butchering this, but we overestimate what we can do in a is it a day and underestimate what we can do in a year, and like taking and kind of take a bird's eye view from things, because sometimes I know myself, I think I can do so much more in a day, and then I either will accomplish all of that and then be a little burnt out the next day, a little slower, or I won't reach that goal and kind of beat myself up, and then it goes on a snowball. Those are things I've done in the past. And some of those remedies, like, that investigating, like, look at what is actually going on here. Where is my time being allocated? And did I just set a goal that was a little bit out of like the realistic scope or something like that? So I think that's huge and a great place to start for people, especially, another thing, doing that a time journal, like seeing where your time is being allocated towards that goal. And that's a great recalibration tool. Is like if you take that, look at what you're doing, because if we think we do things and we end up not. For example, for me today, my AI, my Chat GPT was down, and by noon, I was like, I would have been in Chat GPT for four times today. When in the reality of my day to day, I'm like, oh, I maybe use Chat GPT once a week. Well, no, it's like I have four tasks that need that assistance from AI or something of that nature, and I didn't. So I underestimated how much time I actually put into ChatGPT.
Mm,
Now, if you think about other elements of business that we do, whether it be business meetings, calls, how long are we on admin? How often do we get sucked into social media? Those are things that we can look at and assess. Okay, this is where my time really is going, even though I thought it was going to this place.
mm. So yeah, I think you said the phrase pretty much spot on, right? You underestimate what you can do in a shorter time frame and underestimate what you can do in a longer time frame. And
Mm-hmm.
we see it at when we do quarterly planning with all of our clients, especially if it's newer and you haven't gone through like the 90-day planning process in the past. Almost every single time we see that in real time when when clients are building their plan, and you see it in the sense of like we do weekly things with little blocks of things for every single week, and it almost always is so much stuff condensed into like the first 4 weeks. Well, I can go do all these things, they're just quick little tasks that need to get done, kind of forgetting like, oh, I still got to actually run my business along with doing these different types of things. So as a coach, we have to walk around and kind of help them understand you got to elongate that a little bit, right? Like don't put too many things in a week. You can always pull things forward if you accomplish things faster than you thought you were going to. But if you add too much in a short time period, you start getting off track, and then it just kind of blows everything apart because you kind of do get into that snowball of like, well, now what do I do? I'm off plan, and I didn't get these things done, and now it's just backlogging so many different things, and I got more stuff for this week, and it just gets crazy, and then you get way less done. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's a really good point, and probably one of the driving factors when it comes to being off plan. Um, I'll give another little example I think that helps kind of tie some of this stuff together. Real world example here. I was looking at our numbers today, looking at marketing and things like that, and we're off. We haven't gotten to the marketing lead number for month to date as we're recording this. Um, but I have to backtrack and say, well, why is that? What's causing it? And there's things that we hadn't fully planned for. When we did the plan, it was just a linear this many per week. It's going to be equal every single week. It's like, well, that's not totally true, right? First week of January still had, the New Year's Day in it. People aren't quite back yet. Oh, that wasn't going to be as productive of a week as like a middle of the month type of a week. And we had some team members on vacation, this last week. Well, what did that do? Well, it redistributed where the time in the business was going. So if we had people that weren't doing marketing and sales, now the only other couple people in the business that are doing marketing and sales are getting pulled to do some of the other tasks. Like, well, now they got to do specifically sales and not the marketing things. So now we're just not putting in the time. And that was
Mm-hmm.
the thing that was probably most evident as we took a step back and said, well, why are we off? Well, we're off because we're not doing the work. Like we haven't been to any networking events and it's halfway through the month. Well, that's why, right? Well,
Mm-hmm.
what can we do to fix it? But it's important to kind of look at that. Where's our time going? And um, I think we've talked about time studies and things like that in the past. I'm a huge fan. Just a fun way to do a kind of quote unquote time study. At the end of each of my days, I'll actually go to my calendar, like Outlook calendar, and I'll look at like everything that was on it, and then I'll just backfill in everything that I actually did. So it's like, well, I had time for sales meetings from 10 to noon. I didn't have any sales meetings. What did I do instead? And then I just like fill that in. So I can go back anytime and just say, okay, last week on a Tuesday, this is how I actually spent my time. And that
Mm-hmm.
helps me better prepare and plan for the coming weeks.
That's a really good point. Really writing things down, really taking notes on where your time is going and thinking about too, a lot of my time goes to calls that come in, like random calls. It could be something comes up with something I'm working on, a partner calls, like something of that nature during my day that does eat up some of that time, or like and kind of can throw me off course if I start doing too many extracurricular calls or things that maybe could be scheduled out, or or sometimes you just got to take them too, and it's like, okay, then that we need to allow space for when we're planning our goals is these kind of unforeseen things that come up. Or if we have something, even like my car was broke down during the holidays, and that really put a struggle into my time getting that taken care of, where I had to be planning an event. And it's like, how many times does that happen? It's like when everything is super busy, then there's like that one thing that just lands right, like the feather on top of the pile, and everything falls. But we can, if we allow space for like breathing room for things to come up, and then utilize that time. If, when things go normal, you can like double down on productivity and fill in the gaps there.
Yeah, absolutely. Like if we were to kind of summarize or kind of pull together, like what are the actionable steps? If you're sitting here and you're one of those folks going, yeah, I'm running behind. It's halfway, part of the way through the quarter, depending on kind of when this is released. I'm not where I thought I was going to be. First step, don't panic. It's gonna be
Yes.
okay, right? They take a minute, take a breath, look at, is it something that I can control or is it something I can't, right? We can't always control the time that we have to put in because a car breaks down. But we can control if I just decide not to go to the meetings that's going to produce the result. So be honest with yourself, be transparent, take the emotion out of it as best you can. I know you can't always take out every piece of emotion, but don't panic, relax. What can you control? And if that means the plan has to change slightly, then so be it. We'll
Hmm.
continue to refine and get better at that. Sometimes maybe it'll take 4 months instead of 3 months to get completed. And for most of us, that's okay. Now, if you're a very, very large, running a very, very large public company and you've got shareholders and all that kind of stuff, maybe it's a little bit of a different discussion there. But generally speaking, for most of us in the small business world, it's going to be okay. Take it one step at a time, refine the plan as you go. And the more you practice that, the easier this process will become over time.
That's some really great points. And I think this is such a huge takeaway. Yes, pause, take a breath, and know that, yes, you can always recalibrate. Find that trusted mentor or coach to help you through those times, journal, and, allow yourself space to get back on track, and the time it needs to do that. So, again, thank you, Tanner. This has been a great conversation. We hope that you took so much out of this and know that it is going to be okay and you're going to keep going.